You know, it's kind of wild to think about the Shennong Benko Jing, that ancient Chinese herbal guide,
Yeah.
cataloging hundreds of remedies way, way back.
Oh, absolutely. Thousands of years ago. It really speaks to the history we're looking at today with traditional Chinese medicine, doesn't it?
It really does, and that's what this deep dive is all about, getting into the real foundations of TCM.
Exactly. We're not trying to cover, everything, but focusing on those core theoretical principles, the ideas that have guided it for centuries. It's like understanding the operating system, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And our main source for this is the World Century Compendium to TCM Vol. 1. It's pretty academic, solid stuff from Shanghai scientific and technical publishers.
Right. So our goal here is really to pull out the most crucial, the most insightful bits of these foundational theories, give you a clear picture of how TCM works conceptually without getting totally swamped in detail.
Okay, let's dive in then. So right off the bat, this idea of holism, it seems absolutely central to TCM. What's the real essence of it?
Well, yeah, holism is fundamental. What's really key is that it's not just looking at individual parts in isolation. It's all about the relationships between those parts, how everything connects and interacts.
It's an ecosystem, kind of.
Exactly like an ecosystem. The body is seen as this single, interconnected, organic whole. Structure, function, even how things go wrong, pathologically, it's all linked. And it includes the connection between the body and the outside world, too.
Okay, can you give us an example of how that plays out inside the body?
Sure. Take the spleen and the stomach. In TCM, they're called the postnatal foundation. Basically, our health after we're born really depends on them working well together to process food.
Uh-huh.
So if they're not functioning right, it's not just a tummy ache. It can lead to overall malnutrition, general weakness, because the whole body isn't getting the fuel it needs. It's a cascade effect.
Right, like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Okay, what's another example?
Think about the heart and the lungs. The heart moves the blood, right?
Wow.
And the lungs manage that vital energy or life force. These two are super interdependent. Qi helps push the blood, and the blood carries the qi. If your lung qi is stuck, maybe your blood circulation suffers. If your blood flow is weak, your lung qi might not distribute properly.
So they're constantly influencing each other, a feedback loop.
Exactly. And it goes deeper. The source mentions how, say, a deficiency in the essence qi of one of the main Zang organs, those are the solid ones, like the heart, liver, spleen, lung, kidney,
Right.
how that deficiency can show up in seemingly unrelated places. Like if your liver blood is deficient, you might get dizziness or dry eyes. It really hammers home that everything's connected.
That is fascinating. Okay, you mentioned Qi a few times there. That brings us neatly to the next big theory, essence, Qi, and spirit. Let's dig into Qi first. What exactly is it, and where does it come from?
So Qi is seen as the absolute basic substance and the driving force for all life activities. Think of it as a vital energy. Our source says it comes from a mixed heavenly Qi and earthly Qi, which is basically energy from the environment, air, nature, plus the postnatal essence, which we get from the food we eat and the air we breathe after birth, so we're constantly generating and replenishing it.
So it's partly inherited, partly made continuously.
Precisely. And this kind is what makes everything work. All the tangible stuff, the organs, Zang and Fu, muscles, fluids, they function because Qi promotes their activity. It's the engine.
Can you give some specific examples? How does Qi power the organs?
Sure. The heart needs Qi to pump blood. The lungs need Qi to breathe. The spleen uses Qi to transform food into nutrients. The kidneys store a fundamental kind of Qi. The liver needs Qi for smooth energy flow. Even the stomach needs Qi just to receive food. Sufficient Qi is, well, essential for health.
Got it. So Qi is the energy. What about essence in that trio?
Right, essence. So the source explains we get a prenatal essence from our parents. That's the inherited bit.
Yeah.
Then after birth, this combines with the Qi we breathe in and the nutrients from food processed by the spleen and stomach. That mix becomes the body's essence Qi. Think of essence as a deeper, more concentrated, maybe more fundamental reserve of that vital energy.
Okay, a deeper reserve. And what's the practical upshot? Good Qi versus low Qi.
Well, when Qi is abundant and flowing well, everything works smoothly, normal physiological function.
Right.
But if Qi is deficient, that driving force weakens.
Right.
And that can lead to all sorts of deficiency symptoms, either generally or in specific organs or areas. It's like turning down a dimmer switch. Everything just runs at a lower level.
That's a really clear image. Okay, let's tackle maybe the most famous TCM concept, yin and yang. How does TCM understand these?
Yin and yang are, foundational. They represent fundamental opposing forces, but crucially, they're also completely interdependent. They define each other and exist in everything, including us.
Opposing but interdependent. Yeah. Okay. How does that apply to, say, how our bodies work?
Well, think about function versus substance. Generally, function is seen as yang active, moving. Substance is seen as yin tangible, grounding.
Okay.
But even within functions, you see it, like upward movement in the body, that's yang. Downward movement, yin. Excitement, activity, yang. Calmness, inhibition, yin. Warming actions are yang. Cooling actions are yin.
So it's this interplay of contrasting but necessary qualities.
Exactly. And it's not static. Our source talks about how yin and yang are constantly waxing and waning. Like throughout the day, yang qi is typically stronger during the daytime when we're active. Yin qi becomes more dominant at night for rest and repair. That natural cycle, that rhythm, is crucial for health. Our internal balance shifts constantly.
Like our circadian rhythm described through yin and yang.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens when that balance gets thrown off? How does that relate to getting sick?
Right. Basically, most pathological changes, most illnesses can be understood as some kind of yin-yang imbalance. The source outlines two main ways this happens: relative exuberance and relative debilitation.
Okay, let's break those down. What's relative exuberance?
That's when either yin or yang becomes way too strong, excessive. And this excess can actually damage the opposing force. For instance, if you get invaded by what TCM calls pathogenic yang heat,
Okay.
that excess yang can burn up or damage the body's yin fluids because yang is heat and yin relates to coolness in fluids. You'd see heat symptoms. Conversely, too much yin cold can injure the body's yang qi, leading to cold symptoms. It's like one side of a scale gets overloaded.
So one force gets too strong and just overwhelms the other. What about relative debilitation?
That's kind of the flip side. It's when either yin or yang becomes weak or deficient. Because they normally restrain each other, the weakness of one allows the other to seem hyperactive, even if it's not truly excessive.
Oh.
For example, if yin is deficient, it can't properly anchor or cool yang. This leads to what looks like excess heat night sweats, flushing, but it's actually deficiency heat or yang hyperactivity stemming from yin weakness. Similarly, yang deficiency can lead to apparent yin excess, manifesting as cold symptoms, the very delicate balance.
Maintaining that equilibrium sounds key. And this isn't just theory, is it? Our source mentioned it applies to herbs, too.
Oh, absolutely. Yin and yang are used to classify the nature of medicinal herbs. Herbs that cool the body are generally yin. Herbs that warm are yang.
Makes sense.
And the flavors, too. Pungent, sweet, bland flavors tend to be yang in nature. Sour, bitter, salty flavors tend to be yin. Even the direction an herb tends to move qi in the body upwards or outwards is yang, downwards or inwards is yin. It helps practitioners choose the right remedy to nudge the body back towards that yin-yang balance.
Wow, that duality really permeates the whole system. Okay, let's move on to the theory of 5 elements, Wu Jiang. This one sometimes feels a bit more abstract. What are these elements really representing?
Yeah, it can seem that way at first. The 5 elements, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, aren't meant literally, like just those substances. They represent 5 fundamental dynamic processes, 5 types of energy or phases of change that are seen in everything in the universe, including us.
So it's more about the qualities and the interactions. What are those qualities?
Right. Wood is about growth, expansion, upward and outward movement, smooth flow like a growing tree. Fire is about peak energy, warmth, heat, rising. Think of a flame. Earth is about stability, nourishment, transformation, containment, like the ground supporting life.
Okay.
Metal represents clarity, contraction, descending, refining, order, maybe like purified ore. And water is about fluidity, flowing downward, coolness, storage, potential, like deep water.
I can start to see the different kinds of energy they represent. Lee's source talks about interpromotion and interrestriction. How do those link the elements?
Okay, so interpromotion, or sheng, is a generating cycle. Think of it like a mother-child relationship. Wood feeds fire. Fire creates ash, which becomes earth. Earth contains metal ores. Metal surfaces can collect water, condensation, and water nourishes wood. It's a cycle of nourishment and support.
Like a continuous chain reaction of support.
Yeah.
What about interrestriction or qi?
Qi is the controlling or regulating cycle. It provides checks and balances. Wood's roots control earth, preventing erosion. Earth dams and contains water. Water extinguishes fire. Fire melts and shapes metal. Metal tools chop wood. This cycle prevents any one element from becoming overbearing.
Okay, so checks and balances, keeping things in equilibrium. But then there's over-restriction and counter-restriction. That sounds like when the system goes wrong.
Exactly. Things can get out of whack. Over-restriction, Chang, is when an element controls another too much in that normal qi cycle. Maybe the controlling element is way too strong, or the controlled one is unusually weak. Like if wood is hyperactive, it might over-control earth, leading to digestive issues, since earth relates to the spleen and stomach.
Too much control being harmful. Makes sense. And counter-restriction, woo.
Counter-restriction, or sometimes called insulting, is when the cycle reverses. The element that's supposed to be controlled becomes too strong and turns back to restrict the one that normally controls it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So normally fire controls metal, right? But if metal becomes excessive, it might insult fire. Or if an element is really weak, it might be vulnerable to being insulted by the element it's supposed to be controlling. It throws the whole balance off.
So these cycles and their potential disruptions explain harmony and disharmony through this five-element lens. How does this apply specifically to the human body?
Well, the 5 elements are used to categorize pretty much everything. The main Zang organs get assigned an element. Liver is wood, heart is fire, spleen is earth, lung is metal, and kidney is water. And this extends outwards to directions, seasons, climates, colors, tastes, emotions, tissues. It creates this huge web of correspondences linking our internal workings to the natural world around us.
A massive web. Can you give a concrete example of those links?
Sure, take the liverwood element. Our source quotes a classic text saying something like, "The east generates wind, wind creates wood, wood creates the sour flavor, sour nourishes the liver relates to the eyes and tendons."
Wow.
So you see the connection. East, spring, wind, sour taste, all the quiches. Wood attributes are linked internally to the liver, tendons, and eyes. It reflects that deep idea in TCM of humans being a microcosm of the universe, all organized by these principles.
That really reinforces the holism we started with. Okay, let's shift to the theory of visceral manifestation, or Zhang-Zhang. What's the main idea here?
Zhang-Sheng is all about the internal organs, the viscera. TCM groups them into 3 types. First, the Zang organs, the 5 solid, vital ones we keep mentioning: heart, lung, spleen, liver, kidney. They primarily store vital substances.
Okay.
Second, the few organs, the 6 hollow ones involved in digestion, transformation, and excretion: gallbladder, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, urinary bladder, and the triple energizer. They're more about movement and processing.
Right, processing and elimination versus storing. What about the third type?
Those are the extraordinary few organs. They're unique. Includes the brain, marrow, bones, vessels, uterus. And interestingly, the gallbladder gets listed here too.
Why the gallbladder in both few and extraordinary?
Good question. It's a bit unique because it stores bile, like a Zang organ stores essence, but it's also involved in digestion, like a Fu organ. The brain is seen as the sea of marrow, vital for mind and spirit. The uterus, obviously, for menstruation and reproduction. The triple energizer isn't really an organ you can point to. It's more of a functional concept representing pathways for qi and fluid movement in the upper, middle, and lower body.
Okay, so Zhang store Fu process,
Yep.
and Zhang-Sheng focuses mainly on the Zhang organs.
Well, it covers all of them, but yes, the theory emphasizes a holistic view centered on the 5 Zang organs. A key concept is the interior-exterior relationship between Zang and Fu pairs.
What does that mean? How are they paired?
Each Zang organ is directly linked to a specific Fu organ via the meridian system. So, lung pairs with large intestine, heart with small intestine, spleen with stomach, liver with gallbladder, and kidney with urinary bladder.
Oh, okay. This means they have a very close functional relationship and influence each other pathologically too. A problem in the lung can affect the large intestine and vice versa. They work as a functional unit.
Like partners on the same team?
Exactly. Though, as our source notes, often the detailed theoretical discussion in TCM focuses a bit more heavily on the Zang organs as the core players.
Okay. Another part of this theory seems to be how the inside reflects on the outside, these manifestations.
Yes, that's a really crucial aspect for diagnosis. TCM holds that the internal state of the Zang organs shows externally in specific places. The heart manifests on the tongue, the lung in the nose, the spleen in the mouth and lips, the liver in the eyes, and the kidney in the ears and the 2 lower orifices, urethra anus.
So that's why looking at the tongue is so important in a TCM checkup.
Precisely. Observing the tongue's color, coating, shape gives direct clues about the heart's condition and indirectly about others too. It's like reading the body's dashboard.
Fascinating. And does the 5-element theory tie into this Zhang-Sheng as well? Absolutely. The 5 elements are used to classify the viscera and their meridians, and the concepts of intergeneration, Sheng, and into-restriction are used to analyze their relationships and how diseases might spread.
Ah, like the mother-child idea.
Exactly. A problem might pass from a mother organ to its child in the Sheng cycle, or an imbalance could lead to over-restriction or counter-restriction between organs according to the Qi cycle. These theories are deeply interwoven. 5 elements provide the energetic map, and Zhang Sheng details the organs and their functions within that map.
It's really starting to come together how these different layers work.
Yeah, the source gives specifics like linking liver function, smooth flow to wood, heart circulation to fire, spleen transformation, transportation to earth, lung governing key respiration to metal, and kidney storing essence, water metabolism to water. It all fits together.
Okay, let's focus a bit more on how these Zhang organs specifically interact with each other. What are some key relationships?
They're definitely not working in isolation. There's constant interplay. For instance, the heart and lung relationship is vital for Qi and blood circulation. The lung governs Qi, which helps the heart pump blood, and the blood nourishes the lung. They're right next to each other in the chest, working closely.
Makes sense. What else?
The liver ensures smooth Qi flow everywhere, which helps the lungs' function of dispersing Qi. The spleen makes Qi and blood from food, and the lung helps distribute the essence derived from that food.
That really is like an internal dance, isn't it? Everyone relying on everyone else.
It is. Then there's the kidney and lung connection, especially regarding water metabolism and breathing. The liver and spleen interact closely regarding Qi flow and blood production. The liver needs blood stored. The spleen makes it. The liver and kidney have a deep connection, often called sharing the same source, especially important for essence, blood, and reproduction.
And the spleen and kidney.
Ah, yes. The spleen is the postnatal foundation from food, and the kidney is the prenatal foundation from inheritance. They mutually support each other. The spleen needs the kidney's warmth, yang, to digest properly, and the kidney's essence needs constant replenishing from the nutrients the spleen produces.
These links really drive home that holistic view again. It's not just one organ failing, it pulls on others.
Exactly, and that's crucial for diagnosis and treatment. You often have to treat related organs, not just the ones showing the most obvious symptoms, to restore the overall balance.
Okay, let's zoom in on the vital substances themselves. Qi, blood, and body fluid. We talked a lot about Qi. What about blood and body fluid?
Right. Blood in TCM, its main jobs are nourishing and moistening the entire body organs, tissues, everything. It flows in the vessels, carrying sustenance.
And where does it come from?
It's seen as a complex process. The spleen is key, transforming food essence into the raw materials. The heart pumps it. The lung contributes, key gathered from air. The liver stores blood and regulates its volume. And the kidney provides the underlying essence and key needed for blood production. Essence and blood are seen as closely related, even intertransformable.
So blood is much more than just, bread stuff in tubes. It's actively nourishing. What about body fluid?
Body fluid is a general term for all the normal, healthy fluids. Saliva, sweat, fluids moistening the joints, organs, skin, etc. Its main job, like blood, is to moisten and nourish.
And how is it managed?
Its distribution and balance involves several organs working together. The spleen helps transform and transport fluids from food and drink. The lung disperses fluids and regulates the waterways. The kidney governs water metabolism overall. The liver's smooth Qi flow helps fluids move properly. And that triple energizer concept acts as the pathway system for fluid movement and transformation.
Sounds like a pretty sophisticated internal plumbing and hydration system. How do Qi, blood, and body fluid all relate to each other?
They're incredibly tightly linked. Qi is the commander, the motive force. It moves the blood, it transforms and transports the body fluids. There's a saying. Qi is the commander of blood.
Okay.
And blood, in turn, nourishes the organs that produce and manage Qi. It also provides a material basis for Qi. Blood and body fluid also have a close link. They share the same source in food and drink. They can supplement each other. Pathologically, losing a lot of fluid, like heavy sweating, can thicken the blood and impair circulation. Losing blood can lead to dryness from lack of fluid.
Wow, another layer of deep interconnection.
Absolutely. Qi, blood, and body fluid are seen as the fundamental material basis for all physiological activity in TCM.
Okay, let's talk about meridians and collaterals. We hear meridians a lot with acupuncture. What are they really in TCM theory?
Yeah, the meridian system, Jing-Ludo, is basically a network of pathways or channels running through the body. They're the routes for Qi and blood circulation. Think of them like rivers and streams carrying vital energy and nourishment everywhere, connecting the inside to the outside, top to bottom.
So an internal transport network. What are the components?
Our source lists several parts. There are the 12 main or regular meridians, each linked primarily to a specific Zang or Fu organ. Then there are the 8 extraordinary meridians, like the governor vessel up the back and the conception vessel up the front, which have broader regulatory functions. And branching off these are the collateral smaller vessels that distribute qi and blood more widely, connecting everything together. There are even finer divisions, like minute collaterals, plus related structures like meridian tendons and skin regions associated with the pathways.
A very complex network. What are its main jobs?
Primarily, circulating qi and blood to nourish the whole body. But also, crucially, they connect everything. They link the internal Zang-Fu organs to each other, and they link the interior organs to the exterior body surface, the limbs, the head, the sensory organs, the orifices. It's a communication network as well as a transport system. It explains how, say, stimulating a point on the foot can affect an internal organ.
That link between points and organs makes sense now. Okay, what about body constituents, sensory organs, and orifices? How do they fit in?
So the main body constituents discussed here are skin, muscles, tendons, bones, and vessels. Each is seen as having a particularly close relationship with one of the 5 Zang organs.
Oh, right.
Skin is related to the lung, muscles to the spleen, tendons to the liver, bones to the kidney, and blood vessels to the heart. This means the health of the organ strongly influences the health of that tissue, like strong kidney essence makes for strong bones. Healthy spleen function nourishes the muscles.
And the senses and orifices, the eyes, ears, nose.
They're seen as windows to the internal organs connected via the meridians. Each has a primary link. Eyes to the liver, ears to the kidney, with some links to gallbladder, spleen too, nose to the lung, tongue to the heart, and mouth to the spleen.
So observing them gives diagnostic clues again.
Exactly. The state of your eyes might reflect your liver health, the appearance of your tongue reflects the heart, and so on. The orifices in general, eyes, ears, nostrils, mouth, urethra, anus, are seen as portals connecting the internal body with the external environment, pathways for qi and substances, and places where internal conditions can manifest. The source also links the external genitalia to the kidney, bladder, liver, spleen, and specific meridians, relating their function to these internal systems.
It's like the body's constantly providing signals about its internal state if you know how to read them.
That's the idea behind a lot of TCM diagnosis, yes.
Okay, let's switch gears to why things go wrong. Etiology, the causes of disease. What does TCM identify as the main culprits?
TCM groups causes into a few main categories. A big one is external factors called the 6 exogenous pathogenic factors, or 6XSs. These are basically climatic factors run amok. Wind, cold, summer heat, dampness, dryness, and fire, or heat.
So like catching a cold.
Kind of, but it's more nuanced. These aren't just the weather. They're pathogenic influences with specific characteristics. Wind attacks suddenly, moves around, causes tremors. Cold constricts, causes pain, slows things down. Summer heat is intense heat, often combined with damp, depleting fluids. Dampness is heavy, sticky, causes sluggishness. Dryness dries out fluids and tissues. Fire heat causes inflammation, redness, fever. They cause illness when they're excessive, unseasonal, or our body's defense is weak. The source also mentions leaky pestilential factors like epidemics.
Okay, those are external invaders. What about internal causes?
A major internal cause is emotional imbalance, the 7 emotions. These are joy, anger, worry, or contemplation imbalance, sadness, grief, fear, and fright.
Wait, joy can cause illness.
Excessive or inappropriate joy, yes. Normal emotions are fine, but intense, prolonged, or sudden emotional shocks can disrupt the qi flow and directly harm the corresponding organs. Each emotion primarily affects a specific organ. Excess joy scatters heart qi. Anger makes liver qi rise uncontrollably. Worry, pensiveness knots spleen qi. Grief and sadness deplete lung qi. Fear and fright descend kidney.
Wow, so our mental state is directly physical in this view. What else causes problems?
Oh, yeah. Improper diet is a big one. Eating irregularly, eating unclean food, or having a persistently unbalanced diet, too much cold, greasy, spicy food, etc. Also, lifestyle factors, overexertion, either physically or mentally, can deplete qi. Even too much leisure or lack of activity can cause stagnation. And sexual overindulgence is seen as depleting kidney essence.
Okay.
Finally, there are other factors like internally generated pathological products. Phlegm and blood stasis are major ones. Once formed, they can cause further blockages and problems. And of course, congenital factors or weaknesses we're born with.
It's a really broad perspective on what can lead to illness, environment, emotions, lifestyle, internal products.
Okay, so if those are the causes, What about pathogenesis, how diseases actually develop?
The absolute core concept here is the struggle between our body's healthy junkie, our resistance, vitality, immune function, and pathogenic factors,
Yeah.
the disease-causing influences, whether external or internal.
So it's a battle.
Exactly. Whether we get sick, how sick we get, and how we recover depends on the relative strength of these two forces. Our source stresses that our own healthy key is the crucial internal factor. If it's strong, we might resist pathogens entirely or recover quickly. If it's weak, we're more susceptible.
So our internal state constitution, emotions, and the external challenges interact.
Precisely. Our internal environment, constitution, emotional balance, shonki strength, determines our vulnerability. The external environment presents the challenges. The interaction determines the outcome.
How does TCM describe the patterns of disease once it takes hold? It uses concepts like excess and deficiency patterns. Excess usually means the pathogenic factor is strong, and the body's Kwai is still fighting hard thing. Think acute conditions, strong symptoms. Deficiency means the healthy Kwai is weak, unable to fight effectively, often leading to chronic conditions, weakness, fatigue.
Okay.
There's also the idea of distinguishing true versus false signs. Sometimes extreme deficiency can create misleading symptoms that look like excess or vice versa. And those pathological products we mentioned, like phlegm and blood stasis, are key in pathogenesis. They obstruct Kai and blood flow, creating complex patterns.
It seems quite nuanced. The source mentions specific disorders of key blood fluid.
Yes, it details common pathological patterns. For Qi, there's Qi deficiency, lack of energy, Qi stagnation, flow blocked, causing pain distension, Qi sinking, organs prolapsing, rebellious Qi going the wrong way, like nausea. For blood, there's blood deficiency, paleness, fatigue, poor nourishment, blood stasis, poor circulation, fixed pain masses, blood heat, bleeding, skin issues. For body fluids, you can have overall deficiency, dryness, or problems with distribution causing dampness, phlegm, or edema.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, TCM also talks about internal imbalances generating conditions that mimic the external pathogen. So you can have endogenous wind, tremors, spasms, internal cold feelings, dampness, dryness, or fire heat generated from organ dysfunction. And finally, visceral pathogenesis looks at how specific dysfunctions within each Zang-Fu organ manifest as disease patterns.
It's incredibly detailed. Okay, moving towards health maintenance, life cultivation, or Yang-Sheng. What's the focus there?
Yang-Sheng means nourishing life. It's all about the principles and practices for actively maintaining health, preventing disease, and promoting longevity. It's proactive, not just reactive.
So how do you nourish life in TCM?
Key principles include living in harmony with nature, adapting your lifestyle, diet, activity to the seasons and the time of day. Regulating your diet is huge. Moderation, balance, regularity, proper physical exercise, keeping the Qi and blood flowing, but avoiding overstrain. Mental and emotional cultivation is vital, managing stress, cultivating calm and positivity because emotions directly impact Qi and organs. And generally preserving your core vitality, your essence, Qi, and spirit, and warding off pathogenic factors before they cause problems.
And it sounds like a very common sense, holistic approach to staying well.
It really is, emphasizing balance, moderation, and living in tune with natural rhythms.
Okay, finally, let's touch on therapeutic principles and methods. How does TCM actually go about treating illness?
Treatment always starts with diagnosis, identifying the specific pattern of disharmony in the individual. Based on that pattern, specific therapeutic principles are decided.
Such as?
Key principles include treating the root cause, not just the symptoms, supporting the healthy Qi while eliminating the pathogen, often needing to balance these two, restoring yin-yang balance, regulating Qi and blood flow, harmonizing body fluids. Treatment also needs to be individualized based on the person's constitution, age, the specific disease stage, even the climate and season. They call it treatment according to time, locality, and individuality.
A very personalized approach. What are the main methods used?
The source lists major strategies or methods like inducing sweating to release pathogens from the exterior, harmonizing to resolve imbalances between, say, different organs or levels of the body, purging to clear excess accumulations downwards, resolving to break up stagnation like phlegm or food stagnation, clearing heat, warming cold, tonifying or nourishing deficiencies of Qi, blood, yin or yang.
And these principles are applied using things like herbs and acupuncture.
Exactly. Chinese herbal medicine, materia medica, is a primary tool. Herbs are chosen based on their properties, hot, cold, warm, cool, and flavors, sour, bitter, sweet, pungent, salty, which indicate their specific actions to counteract the diagnosed imbalance. They consider how herbs interact too. They're prepared as decoctions, pills, powders, etc.
Okay.
Then there's acupuncture and moxibustion. Acupuncture uses fine needles at specific points along the meridians to regulate qi and blood flow. Moxibustion involves burning mugwort herb near acupoints to warm the channels and expel cold or invigorate qi. Tuina, therapeutic massage, also works on meridians and acupoints using specific hand techniques. All these methods aim to restore that internal balance based on the foundational theories.
It's a remarkably comprehensive system, all stemming from those core ideas we discussed.
Absolutely. Everything from diagnosis to treatment flows directly from that understanding of holism, yin-yang, 5 elements, qi, blood, organs, and meridians.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful, a real deep dive into TCM's foundations. Just to recap the big ideas, we looked at holism, the body, as an interconnected whole, essence, qi, and spirit as vital substances, the fundamental balance of yin and yang, the dynamic relationships of the 5 elements, how internal organs function and manifest externally, Zhang, the roles of blood and body fluid, the meridian network, body constituents and senses, the diverse causes of disease, etiology, how diseases develop, pathogenesis, the art of health preservation, Yang, and the principles guiding TCM therapies.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, and thinking about all this, it might make you wonder, how could seeing yourself, your health, through a more holistic lens, thinking about internal balance, your connection to your environment, how might that shift how you approach your own well-being day to day?
It's a fantastic question to ponder. Maybe this conversation has sparked an interest for you, the listener, to explore something specific further, perhaps the world of Chinese herbs or maybe the logic behind acupuncture points. Thanks so much for joining us on the Deep Dive.